This is as dangerous a moment for the Middle East, I think, as any this year. And that's in a long, difficult, complex, challenging year. We're once again in one of those perilous eye for an eye escalations that we get in the region, with the hardliners in Israel and Iran testing how far the other side is willing to go.
Let's now turn to events in the Middle East, because the political leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, has been killed in an airstrike in Tehran, prompting further fears of escalation in the region. Now, there's been no immediate comment from Israel. However, Benjamin Netanyahu did put him down as one of the top 3 Hamas leaders that he wanted killed. Let's now speak with Tom Fletcher. Tom was the UK's ambassador to Lebanon between 2011 and 2025, it says here. I don't think that can be 2015, because you're not a Time Lord, you're not in the future. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aisha. Yes, it was 2015. A 14-year shift in Lebanon would have been too much for anyone.
Yeah, I think that would have been quite a shift, Tom. So, look, what's your assessment of what has happened in the last 24 hours? There was also another senior person that was killed as well. What's happened and what happens next in your estimation?
Well, you were just talking about dangerous men, and this is as dangerous a moment for the Middle East, I think, as any this year. And that's in a long, difficult, complex, challenging year. We're once again in one of those perilous eye for an eye escalations that we get in the region, with the hardliners in Israel and Iran testing how far the other side is willing to go. And so the key now is to separate the belligerent rhetoric that we'll keep getting. There'll be plenty. We've just heard more of it from the Iranian leadership. Separate that from the decisions the key players are actually taking on how, when, and where to retaliate. That will become clear in the next 48, 72 hours. But be in no doubt, this is a moment of real risk, and the tinder is very flammable.
And in terms of international diplomacy, what can international diplomacy do in a situation like this, where the emotions are running high? There's a lot of anger. There's also going to be a lot of, right, we have to, from a pride point of view, do a retaliation. Who are the kind of key people speaking to, and will they listen or countenance advice or guidance or warnings from outside voices?
So that's, of course, where the action moves now. And we can expect massive American and international diplomatic pressure, the UN, the French, the Brits, regional players such as Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, all of those different players pushing for restraint, pressing for restraint. I suspect the Americans would have known, and it was a fairly publicly stated ambition, that both Haniyeh and Shukr in the Dahiyeh in Beirut were big targets for Netanyahu, that he was going after them. What they wouldn't have known would be the timing or the location of the assassinations, the very deliberate provocation of doing this right in the midst of the inauguration of the new Iranian president in Tehran itself. I mean, that's quite a bold move. So very complex diplomacy. And what the international community can do, and Blinken is good at this, the others are good at this, they can build the off-ramps for the different sides to take, but the different sides then have to want to take them. And it's not clear at the moment that they do. One encouraging sign, maybe I'm clutching at straws here, is that both Hezbollah and Iran have signaled they don't want full-scale conflict. And perhaps these sorts of assassinations are within the margins of long-held understandings between Israel and Hezbollah about who you can hit and where. But I'm clutching at straws, probably. Those understandings are fraying badly.
I mean, Hamas has said that, they will want to, avenge this. And what do you think this means for those incredibly fragile peace talks and ceasefire talks that are going on?
It's a threat to those. Perhaps it allows Bibi Netanyahu to claim a win and therefore open up the prospect of more progress in the negotiations. I very much doubt it. And I very much doubt that's his intention either. I think it emboldens the hardliners on both sides, those who want to undermine those talks, who don't want to get the hostages home, who don't want to alleviate that terrible humanitarian pressure that there is on Gaza, the huge civilian suffering, this great uncertainty for Israelis and Palestinians. That all becomes much harder to resolve. ultimately, there's no way out of this crisis without some sort of hope that both the Palestinians and Israelis can get security, justice, opportunity in the lands that they can call their own. And that needs partners for peace. And at the moment, we just don't have that.
All right. Well, look, Tom, really good to catch up with you. Thanks very much for your time. That's Tom Fletcher, who was the UK's ambassador to Lebanon there.
Evening, the IDF carried out a targeted strike in Beirut on Fuad Shukur, also known as Said Muhsin, Hezbollah's most senior military commander and the head of its strategic unit. Fuad Shukur was the right-hand man to Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader and his advisor in planning and directing attacks and operations. Fuad Shukur was the commander responsible for the Majd al-Shams massacre, in which 12 children were murdered after Hezbollah fired an Iranian Falak 1 rocket directly at a soccer field in northern Israel on Saturday evening. He was a senior terrorist who has the blood of the Israelis and many others on his hands. One day after Hamas massacre on October 7th, Hezbollah joined Hamas in attacking Israelis. Since then, Hezbollah has fired thousands of rockets, missiles, and UAVs at Israel over the last 9.5 months, killing Israeli civilians and soldiers, and forcing 60,000 Israelis to evacuate from their homes. The IDF will not tolerate terrorist attack on Israeli civilians. We have been responding to these attacks with precise strikes on Hezbollah commanders, terror operatives, and military infrastructures in Lebanon. Hezbollah's ongoing aggression and brutal attacks are dragging the people of Lebanon and the entire Middle East into a wider escalation. While we prefer to resolve hostilities without a wider war, the IDF is fully prepared for any scenario. We have a duty to ensure the safe and secure return of Israelis to their homes in northern Israel, and we will continue to act to defend all people of Israel.
The Israeli crime of assassinating Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, will not break the Palestinian resistance or the Palestinian people's determination to achieve our freedom. But fascists are now dominating the Israeli government, and they are trying to drag the whole region into a total explosion. Netanyahu is a war criminal, and he is trying even to drag the United States itself into a confrontation with Iran and with the whole region. Of course, it will escalate the situation. The fascists in Israel are dragging the region into a whole explosion. In 24 hours, they attacked in Lebanon, they attacked in Tehran. What do they want? To drag the region into a total explosion. And this is what Netanyahu wants. He knows that the end of this war is the end of his political career.